Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, osia dem yopo.
Personalities who are expected to lead these prosecutions are at each other's throat, fighting over who has the power to prosecute. The Attorney General is in court, right? In fact, he's joined a suit, right, as an interested party, trying to ward off the prosecutorial powers of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, who has given all indication. In fact, the last press conference he had, the suggestion was that people are trying to get him out of office. Where do you cite your imaginations and indications in the midst of all this?
Well, I think you left one person out, Ernest Dakwakori. That's the chef de maison of Finance Minister, right. Ken Ofori-Atta. He's also a wanted man, wanted for same extradition as Ken Ofori-Atta. And he's also run away. Let me start with SH瘡CK, who I know very well. In fact, I worked with her. She was the CEO of the National Youth Authority when I was the Deputy CEO of the National Youth Authority. I know her.
Should we start investigating you?
Well, she left to Maslock, and then I left to the Youth Enterprise Support at the Office of the President. In fact, these are two agencies under the Office of the President or government machinery. I worked closely with her at the National Youth Authority, and for the first time, the National Youth Authority was put on the single spine under her watch. And I think she did quite a fine job. Unfortunately, when she went to Maslock, the National Youth Authority was very under-resourced, so we didn't have money to throw around and do all sorts of things. Maslock, however, is a state agency that gives out monies, loans to other persons, and she's accused of having misappropriated or embezzled some funds belonging to Maslock, for which trial she and the Director of Finance, I believe, or the Chief, whatever, were indicted and tried. The trial started while she was present, unlike that of Ken Ofori-Atta, so there's a distinction. Now, it is in the course of the trial that for health reasons, which were verified, and it's not a trumped up health situation she had, where I'm not allowed to, as it were, disclose people's health on this. But if you wish for me to disclose, I'll disclose and give full disclosure of others too that you may be uncomfortable with. So be careful if you want me to.
Don't go there.
Well, but at least under the MPP, her health considerations were granted, and she left to get treatment in the US. She'd been undergoing treatment in the US, and the trial proceeded. Two people stood in surety. I recall the brother and then Alex Mould stood surety for her. She did not return, which is considered in legal terms as having jumped bail. And she had not returned, and so the state had a responsibility to track her, and due to the relationship that we have with the US, where she was, just like Ken, have her brought back. So the extradition request was put in, which extradition process has finally come full cycle. Indeed, she was apprehended the same day as Ken was in the US, and she was sent to a detention center just like Ken was. She is due back, and so by every logic we expect that Ken Ofori-Atta will also join us shortly, and I'm sure Arise Ghana will be at the airport to welcome Madam SH瘡CK, and just the same way Arise Ghana went to the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice to ask that Ken Ofori-Atta, once he returns, his rights as a citizen should not be abused, and that he is guaranteed fair trial, for which the Commissioner Vital confirmed same and gave Ghanaians his assurances. We expect that SH瘡will be given the same, to serve, if for nothing, as a pointer to the US and government, and also the legal system that is currently considering the deportation extradition or however else he's brought in, even if he's put in a crate, we'll be happy to have him home, of Ken Ofori-Atta and his chef de maison. We want to see them. Everybody should come home to answer for their stewardship. In fact, when you enter public service or public office, the first consideration will be that you are ready to, as it were, give account of your stewardship. And so if Madam SH瘡CK is being brought back to give account of her stewardship, I think Ken Ofori-Atta and Ernest Akori must also be brought back to give account of their stewardship. I don't wish to believe for a minute that even though the evidence before us and that which we know of Ken Ofori-Atta and Akori and other companies and individuals that they helped to, as it were, quote unquote, loot from the state or plunder the public purse, and all those evidence that are available, would want to state that fair trial is a key, ingredient in dispensation, and we should guard it jealously, and we would, from the Arise Ghana perspective, ensure that happens. So those who think that politicization of Ken's trial and so on should be a reason for him not to be brought back, I think that is totally wrong. It's out of the window. Whether we talk about it or we don't talk about it, he has to come back home. And I don't think the American government or the global, environment that we live in should entertain the thought of people having opportunity to serve and then they refuse to give account of their stewardship. The health considerations that led Ken to leave the country on the eve of the departure from office of his cousin Nana Akufo-Addo are no longer tenable. In fact, I wish very much to put on record that so far we have not heard Nana Akufo-Addo publicly speak to this issue and demand, like most Ghanaians are, for Ken to come back home. We've heard whispers that he's advised him to come back. We don't want to hear whispers. We want to see him do his fellow Ghanaians speech and say same. In fact, what's his name? The one who he used to mismanage the economy, the head of the economic management team at the time, who was claiming that Ken was taking his job from him and not allowing him to, as it were, manage the economy. Bawumia, he's now the leader of the NPP. He's the flag bearer of the NPP. He's also been silent about Ken Ofori-Atta and whether he should be brought back or whether Ken Ofori-Atta should be given an opportunity to give account of his stewardship. Bawumia, you can no longer keep quiet. Okay? Bawumia, come out of the works and demand for Ken to come and demand for his extradition and lead the NPP to state clearly the position of the NPP on Ken's listen to Ghanaians. It is the finances of this country that is being talked about. And just free advice.
I've heard people suggest that the NPP is out of government. They have an individual, a former government official, who is allegedly being involved in some corrupt related issues. You are the government in power. Use your machinery to bring Ken home. Okay. Why should you involve the NPP? No, what do you want the NPP to say?
If your logic is right, then the NPP should shut up on every other issue that is going on. In fact, today I've seen the Otumfo, together with the Deputy Defense Minister, the Roads Minister, and the Regional Minister for Ashanti, getting the Ghana Armed Forces to start the expressway to Kumasi. The Ghana Armed Forces are going to construct that. Meanwhile, you have NPP elements, including an MP from Ashanti, that's the former Western Housing or Roads Minister, the one who's also accused of a lot of corruption, Asase-Boakye. Opposed to that. The NPP is opposed to that, and they are opposed to the big push, which is going to allow for Ghana to have a great transformation. Otumfo is helping for that to happen, and these people are against. Now you ask yourself, what is this political party interested in? They just want to make sure that nothing happens in terms of progress for this country so that they can get power. Ghanaians are smarter than that. I am saying that if either they shut up on everything or they must speak to everything, particularly this one, because without the monies that have been stolen, the billions of dollars that has been stolen under the watch of Bawumia and Ken Ofori-Atta, it will be difficult to finish the big push in record time. How much have they stolen? You know how much they've stolen? You have any idea? Bawumia's brother alone, the contracts that he got Do you know how much it is? If you look at each of the ministries and the public accounts committee things that are coming up, these are real figures. We could finish this in the Kumasi Expressway in no time. You understand? And so also could we finish a lot of health sector things, education sector things. Everything requires money. In fact, we don't need the IMF if we are able to get oral to work. And so Ghanaians wanted oral. That's why the overwhelming number of people who went out to vote voted for the NDC and gave it the mandate. The minority must stop the distraction. These days, every day they want to claim some scandal, and they want to just obfuscate the atmosphere with a lot of, bad breath and fat. We will not have any more of it. Ghanaians are tired of this, but Ghanaians want to hear from Bawumia. In fact, today, I think Bawumia must speak to this issue. Otherwise, he doesn't even have an election to prosecute, because you sat at the place, you were put in charge of the economy. You mismanaged it. You mismanaged the CD. You let the CD be beaten very badly by the dollar. Today, within a short time, all of these things are happening and happening. Look, if you put, let's say, for example, Atofos, because we just discussed the Benin thing, finance minister, against Bawumia, who's supposed to be an economic minister, Wizkid, who do you think Ghanaians want? If you put Haruna Iddrisu, you beat him. You put the chief of staff, you beat him. You put even the general secretary, now chairman, you beat him. The vice president, everybody, even if you put, PDA. No, I don't want to use myself. Salam is younger. Salam will beat Bawumia any day. Ghanaians don't want Bawumia. So the last thing Bawumia wants to do is to keep quiet about Ken. You claim Ken didn't allow you to function, and that's how Ken lost the election. At least let us be, unless of course they did together. You understand? Because you see, Ken was managing the personal finances of Akufo-Addo. That is what Akufo-Addo said when he was giving him his lesson of office. And so if Ken was managing Akufo-Addo's finances, and Ken does not come to testify, in another 1 year, we cannot prosecute Akufo-Addo. For 3 years, if you don't prosecute a president...
What charges have you leveled against him that you want to
Charlie, the doctors alone.
But there's no charges leveled against him.
Akufo-Addo personally, the things he has done.
But I'm saying there are no current charges against him.
But so if we are going to charge him, the star witness will be Ken Ofori-Atta. That's why he let him run away. Akufo-Addo allowed Ken to run away, and the OSP has been running the clock, and time is going. Right now, more than 1 year is gone. Another year, and we are almost done with the 3 years with window that you can prosecute Akufo-Addo. But look, Bawumia will be prosecuted. Akufo-Addo must be prosecuted. Look, anybody who has looted must be prosecuted, whether it's NDPC or I don't care. In fact, to add to that and not to conclude, I wish to congratulate the government for something that they promised, that they began doing, that they haven't done fully in the direction of oral. But at least I've seen, and I've gone to the website of the Lands Ministry, for example. They published the list of those who have looted or allegedly looted state lands and bungalows. They published the list. And they have cancelled a number of those in the thousands in Accra and Kumasi. I've seen Ashanti and Greater Accra, cancellations. We want the full details, because what they put there is not detailed enough. We want the details so we can actually see where the land is. So if your name is there and it's been cancelled, we want to see that your land is the one near Jack and Jill. So we go and verify that indeed, because a lot of buildings are still going up. If you go to the Southbridge area, as though there's not been a change in government, as though oral is not working, and it's really hurt some of us. We want to see that these things are put to a halt, because the Operation Cover All Loot is not about just rhetoric. We want to see action. Those who are stolen and the things are in their houses, under their beds or in their bank accounts, and are pumping it into building projects like there's no tomorrow. Those people must be pursued. The easiest way to find the cash that the people have stolen is to go there, like Sam Jonah said. Go out there. The buildings are springing up, the skyscrapers, the apartments, and so on. Let us go and see who are behind it. And in fact, when I look at the list, some names were repeating like 3-4 times. You ask yourself, how can one person be awarded so much? The person must be well connected, and some of them are fronting for people. So if the accusation is coming that NDC people are doing the same thing, and I hope by God that none of the NDC guys are doing that, they must be treated the same way.
Right. So,
thank you very much. I think my brother Prince, I don't know whether perhaps it escaped me. He never touched on the OSP and the OSP and the Attorney General's.
I didn't see a real problem there. You see, the Constitution gives only the Attorney General that responsibility. Parliament kind of tried to carve something out of that, and permission was given under a certain Attorney General Odami. Now a new Attorney General has come. He sees things a little differently. Even he was very instrumental in crafting the OSP bill. He understands clearly what is at stake. Now, a private person has gone to put up something. It wasn't the Attorney General. The Attorney General is in there. OSP wants to join the suit. OSP has been thrown out. I think that they should be given an opportunity to go and make their case. But bottom line is that I think the settlement of all of this is to separate the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. We don't need an OSP. We don't. The Attorney General's responsibility is clear, unambiguous. But the difficulty is that once the person is a minister,
you don't think that the AG has too much on his table?
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's the intention.
I'm saying that if you are the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, that's the first challenge. The first challenge is that you are sitting in cabinet with people, and the reason for carving out the OSP was to allow for some independent person, independent of the government circle, to prosecute people in government. Look, as we speak, is the current government prosecuting everybody who's out of government? It's not happening, and that's why people are angry. So it doesn't even answer the initial problem that the OSP was supposed to cure. If, assuming the Attorney General is supposed to prosecute those who are out of their government, but because they cannot prosecute those in their government, OSP has been set up. The OSP's focus should be on those who are in government, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the Attorney General out of government. Is that what is happening? It's not happening. And that's why Ghanaians are saying that oral and etc. are not working. I say that we should decouple the Attorney General from the office of the Minister of Justice, okay? Or even the Minister of Justice position isn't really necessary. Let's just have an Attorney General that's independent. The constitutional review process has ended. The implementation phase is going to happen, and then we'll have referendum. The new constitution that will be born out of that should not have these two together, and then would have solved it. But we need also to note that politicians across the board have been doing that scratch your back, I scratch your back thing, and that is what Ghanaians are up against. So, if we are not careful, we can decouple and still have the same situation persistent, and that's why the constitution has given the greater power to the people of Ghana. The people of Ghana can rise up against anybody, whether it's Attorney General or OSP or anybody. In fact, the people of Ghana can actually go and arrest people. You know that?
Yeah.
Citizen arrest. And I intend that very soon we will arrest some of the people who are building around Cantonment's Laboni Airport. We will go. I will mount the bulldozer myself. I will mount it and we will demolish something.
Well,
you will be there to fight.
That would be against the law.
It's illegal. It's a constitutional
citizen arrest doesn't give you a right to go and demolish people's structure.
Now they say go and
don't get yourself in trouble.
No. I said we'll do it legally.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
So,
the extradition of Madam SH瘡to Ghana, that the American authority has the court there has now ruled that she should be extradited to Ghana, back to Ghana, but it is not automatic that she is coming back to Ghana, because she has the right to appeal.
I think she's gone through that process.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, but
now the order has been given. She went before the courts. Now it's the courts that has decided that she has to be brought back.
Yes, but
so which means she's going to
the court doesn't have that sole responsibility. Even if the court decides that somebody should be extradited to the country making the request, there's an administrative stage, and that is firmly in the hands of, I think, the Secretary of State.
Yeah, final decision.
You understand? The final decision rests with that person. So even if the court rules today that Mr. Ofori-Atta should be extradited to Ghana, and if that political person says that no, he's not going, or he will not uphold the decision by the court, it means the person will not be
find that
back.
a little bit strange.
That is it. No, but that's what
that is it. So that is how they treat the extradition. You understand? Correct. Now, the Attorney General and the OSP, there are two schools of thought in this matter, and you have touched on that a bit. That his plate is full, okay, which is even creating some disillusionment among Ghanaians that no, it's like the Attorney General is not working the way they expected him to work. He's not working. Now, part of his authority or power, his prosecutorial power, part of this has been hived off to the OSP. But you know, the Attorney General is mentioned. The Attorney General is mentioned in the Constitution of Ghana. Okay, his duty and mandate clearly spelled out in the Constitution, and that is entrenched. Okay, yeah. And that is Article 88, Clause 3, which gives the prosecutorial powers to the Attorney General. No other person shares that with the Attorney General. Okay, so the OSP, we need to know why that office was even set up in the first place. It was set up just because we have been whining and grumbling that the Attorney General should not be a politically appointed person. So Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, during his campaign in 2016, put it before the good people of this country that given the mandate, he would create the office of special prosecutor, and people were excited because that is what we have long wished for, that the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, that two positions should be decoupled for us to have an independent Attorney General who will be responsible for prosecuting criminal cases for and on behalf of the state of the state Ghana. Okay, now the only thing I find a bit troubling, troubling, is that Operation Retrieve or Loot. It seems the Attorney General is underestimating what that very campaign message is. I can see that he's grossly underestimating it. Most Ghanaians voted for the NDC because of Oral. Because right before us that time was a kleptocratic regime. People who were plundering our resources because they wanted to be rich beyond the dreams of avarice. We witnessed it. So when the NDC, judging the mood and sentiment on the ground, formulated that policy of Oral, we bought into it and campaigned for them vigorously. So if Attorney General comes and is, managing this thing as though it's just one of those campaign promises, I want to use this opportunity to tell him that it is a very serious promise. It is a solemn promise that they must kept. If they fail to implement Oral to the satisfaction of Ghanaians, it will cost them and may even jeopardize the democratic stability. People looted this country. They plundered our resources. And you come to do camaraderie, scratch my back, I scratch your back. Because people are even saying it, that the interest of Attorney General to even join this thing smacks of that thing. So you will have the opportunity to be doing this, scratch my back, I scratch your back. Indeed, the Constitution of Ghana is explicit and ambiguously clear that the prosecutorial powers rest with him, but that shall not be his business now. The business he has now is to fully implement Oral. We mean it. This government may just be like
the prosecution of Oral cases. It is intertwined. You find some of the docket, I'm told, with the AG, some are with the OSP, right? So if you have two officers who are in conflict,
they are not in conflict.
They are in conflict.
No, they are not in conflict.
I am not saying that. Okay. I'm saying that once the AG is in court and is not happy with some of the prosecutorial powers of the OSP, then it becomes problematic. So now, who gets to prosecute what? Under which authority? As you rightly said, we all acknowledge the Constitution gives the AG that that mandate. Yeah,
that is his mandate. Clearly spelled out.
It was as a result of a difficulty. That's why the Office of the Special Prosecutor was created.
Correct.
Right? Because sometimes of the conflict of interest.
Exactly.
Will the AG be able to prosecute his own?
Yeah, the OSP, at a point in time of his investigation into some of these corruption and corruption-related cases, happened to arrest somebody who sponsored the Attorney General's campaign? You don't immediately recall. Somebody who funded the Attorney General's campaign was arrested by the OSP. Okay, because the OSP was doing an investigation that led to the arrest of that gentleman. There, people started reading meanings into the thing, and then when the gentleman was released, some Ghanaians even said that they suspected that the AG must have placed some or must have pulled some strings for the gentleman to be released. Now AG is now fighting tooth and nail to get his constitutional mandate untouched. He doesn't want any rival. We are saying to him that he should focus on oral. If an office like the OSP is prosecuting a case, say corruption and corruption related cases, and the AG also finds interest in that, shouldn't they be engaging in synergy? Is there a rivalry?
But if you are not getting that from,
you are not getting it from
office,
where?
how do you move on?
No, they are not getting it from where?
In this instance, we heard Ofori-Atta's case that the AG had come out and says, look, let me have the docket. And you heard that banter right, between the OSP and the AG,
yes,
where the AG was requesting for the docket. You know, up to now, for me, I can't tell whether that docket was released to the AG or not. So it becomes a problem.
Yes,
it's been released, but after it delayed.
Good.
Right, and that even delayed the process.
Good. You see, when this thing started, when this this court thing started, one thing that popped up my mind on my mind immediately was, or is it the case that the Attorney General having some suspicion of the OSP not truly investigating some cases that he claims he's investigating, which therefore is compelling the Attorney General now to now claim that no, you are even doing something, your office is even
the powers is derived from the powers of the office.
It is unconstitutional in the sense that the Constitution of Ghana, Article 1 Clause 2 specifically says that this constitution shall be the supreme law of Ghana, and any other law found to be inconsistent with any provision of this constitution shall, to the extent of that inconsistency, be void. Article 1 Clause 2. That's what the constitution says. So it means that the creation of the OSP is void.
And in fact, the AG's argument
without prejudice to the case that is before the
Parliament
court now.
Even aired
correct
in creation of the OSP. That's the argument.
So Parliament actually, without prejudice to the case that is before the judges, because it's sub judice. So I should be careful how I go about it. But the constitution is clear that any other law found to be inconsistent with any provision of this constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. But the constitution again says that if you are a Ghanaian and you find that a law has been passed that is not consistent with any provision of this constitution, you proceed to court. And that is what that person has done by proceeding to the court. So it means Parliament, like you rightly said, Parliament actually erred in creating the office of special prosecutor.
There's a small caveat though.
What's that?
If only the special prosecutor will seek permission from the Attorney General in taking up the prosecutorial functions that has been quote unquote donated to it, then there's no problem.
But in this instance,
no, but the
assumption is that the OSP is not doing so.
You see, in the same constitution, I've got I think 83 or so, the Attorney General is supposed to be able to give prosecutorial functions to other persons. You understand? And in this particular instance, the police have been doing it, etc., etc., and the OSP can. So if the OSP has been a legally created body to do what it is supposed to be doing, then it must be taken, in order for it to be constitutional, it must derive express, and the keyword is express permission from the Attorney General at all times. in order for it to be consistent with the constitution. But now, because the OSP sees itself as independent, the OSP is working with its own timetable.
Exactly.
Is it that he sees himself as independent, or that is what the legislation that sets it up is?
Exactly.
So it's an independent institution.
Yes, because the legislation that sets him up as independent. Okay, so he also has the power to prosecute. So it's not like he is acting on his impulse.
Subject to that should be the legal framework.
And
subject to.
Good, and I think that is even the gravamen of what is before the court.
Right.
Well, that is what is before the court.
Right.
So that's why I, in my prefatory comment, statement, I said that two schools of thought. People, especially the oralists, those who, the proponents of oral, believe that or have this thing that Attorney General, your plate is full. Focus on oral. Oral is where the thing is. We want that done. Don't be sidetracked. Focus on your oral. Okay, that's one school of thought. Without paying obeisance to Article 88 clause 3 and Article 1 clause 2. You understand? As for them, they are not interested in that. But the people who also believe in the rule of law and the literalist interpretation of the Constitution says that the Attorney General is right by joining this case because his prosecutorial power has been is not being rivaled by another state institution. So he is fighting to have that total control of his prosecutorial powers. So that's why I said two schools of thought. But for me, what I think is that as somebody who also do my things within the ambit of the Constitution, the Attorney General, to that extent, he is right. But we don't want him to be sidetracked. We want him to focus on what they promised us, which is the oral. For us in our rights, and as for us, that is the thing. So we have become like advocates. Staunch advocates of oral, and imbued with the spirit of martyr and the sharp intellect of advocates. That's how we approach that. That's how we approach this oral thing. So Attorney General should focus on oral. The NDC government, the Mahama government, should focus on oral, because now some people say oral is comatose. It is moribund. Oral has been killed because of camaraderie. Thank you.
No. Oral will not die.
I think for the first case of SH瘡, I believe that one is a straightforward case. We don't need to the extent that a district court in Nevada has certified that she should be extradited. So be it. Yeah. Once the procedures have been followed, rules have been respected, not to waste. But ultimately, we know it has to take a political decision here. You know, a minister of the equivalent of the Minister of Foreign Affairs will have to take the final decision as to whether she should be brought back or not. We can only hope that she should be brought back to face justice. Now, the second issue, the issue of AG and the suit in court as to whether his prosecutorial powers has been, you know, given out entirely to, or partially rather, to OSP, or is that whatever OSP has to do must come with his permission. I think that we should leave the legal angle for the court to decide. But to the ordinary Ghanaian, if sovereignty relies, our sovereignty lies with us, the ordinary people, what are the thought processes of the ordinary Ghanaian as far as fighting graft is concerned? That should be the focus. I want to first start by cautioning or pleading with the Attorney General. He should weigh his position when the law was being passed, that's at 759. We know records in Parliament suggest that his position was at variance with those who wanted to create the office of the special prosecutor. So he should try to make that distinction between what his position was and his current position as an Attorney General and what his position should be. Else, it shouldn't be that the position he held before is what is still being carried now as far as this suit is concerned. Yes, a private individual has gone to the Supreme Court to seek interpretation. So let's leave the legal interpretation to, okay? But what are Ghanaians looking for? As far as the establishment of the office of the OSP is concerned, I think it has to do with the question of fighting corruption, fighting graft. That's the bottom line. As to how it is going to be done, that is what Ghanaians are looking for. As for the legal language, all the gymnastics, the fine English, look, Ghanaians are not looking for that. Like has been said by my two elder brothers, it is clear and it remains a fact that, look, until now, we know how this nation was looted. For example, we are in this country when about 7 or 9 banks, 9 indigenous banks were closed. Right? We were told there was a liability of about 9 billion. However, 25 billion plus has been expended to resolve a 9 billion problem. Ghanaians want to know what happened. As to those languages, as to whoever has prosecutor powers, whether it's been given partially, it's been given fully, or we don't want to, we are not interested in that. If there was a 9 billion liability or a 9 billion problem, how come the 25 billion, we are still counting, some have even said it has even cost 28 billion, has been expended, and yet the problem had not been fully resolved? Because if you listen to commentaries even to date, there are people who are still claiming that their lifetime investments have been destroyed and have not been compensated. I think this should be the areas of interest for state actors, whether it is OSP, whether it is Attorney General, and so on and so forth. We know Motor Angels, Tama Motorway, $3 million gone, no work done. We know between they said the Tamale Road to Savrugu to Wale or so, some Indian company took away how much? Some $29 million, no work done, and many of same, Palugu, etc. These are the things that Ghanaians are looking for. Well, it's refreshing to hear from PDA this morning that some lands that were looted have been reversed. We need to know the details.
No reverse.
Or is it council? Okay. It should take him back to the state. So these should be areas that we want state actors to be telling Ghanaians that state property that has been misapplied, that has been looted, and so on and so forth, efforts are being made to get them back to the rightful owners who are Ghanaians, but not to be grappling over who has full prosecutorial powers, who hasn't got, who has got. Those ones, I don't think Ghanaians are interested. Yes, to the extent that they are important constitutional matters, I think that the AG has more to do. And like my brother here said, look, if oral does not succeed, and this will pay dearly for it. There is no doubt about that. And this will pay dearly if oral does not succeed. Because the last election results is not only NDC members who voted the NDC into power. There were ordinary Ghanaians who saw the loot, who saw what was going on. Just go back to Public Accounts Committee. What are some of the things we are hearing?
Yeah.
And speak to some of the officers, even in Auditor General's report. I'm telling you, the report we have on table has been watered down. When you speak to some of the field officers who did work investigating some of this that are being reported at Public Accounts Committee, they will tell the version that has officially come out has even been watered down. That is more scandalous than what we're seeing. So these are the things that we should be talking about.
Huge sums.
Yeah, huge sums of money. And yet we sit down here, we are going to IMF, we are going to World Bank for crumb. You know, why can't we work out modalities, policies, frameworks that will help us retrieve what we have lost?
If officials at the district assembly,
yes, the basket
are chopping close to 1.5 million Ghana cedis,
the basket is still leaking. We are not mending the holes, and yet we keep rather fighting and haggling over immaterial things that will not save the public purse. Probably we have reached a stage that should we start talking about how to harmonize all these investigative bodies so that we have one body but different units. So that at the end of the day, whether it is OSP, Yoko, whatever it is, can we find all of them under one body so that, yes, it is that body that will assign what should go to Yoko, what should go to OSP, and so on and so forth, what to go to the police CID, and so on and so forth. So that at the end of the day, we can hold that institutions responsible. But when we say like, okay, Yoko seems to have some leverage to do certain things, OSP has his own independence, Attorney General, and it's like the whole thing is mixed up. Can we start talking of looking at a unified body that will be delegated fully to handle all this matter? Then within that unit, departments are assigned specific roles to carry out. So at the end of the day, we just hold that unit responsible.
I think in addition to this also, perhaps now that the legal education bill has been passed and soon becomes law, we'll have a lot more lawyers, and hopefully the Office of the Attorney General, once decoupled, would have the full complement of lawyers to, as Doc has indicated, assist in not just a prosecutorial,
are we saying we don't have enough? We don't have enough lawyers to prosecute.
No, in fact, they're understaffed.
Right.
They are heavily understaffed, and especially prosecutors. They are very. Listen, I'll defer the rest of the time.
Thank you. You know, in my submission earlier, I said that there is this perception out there that Aura is comatose, that Aura is moribund, because of camaraderie. The Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, who is an appointee of the President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, Mr. Mustafa Bande, just yesterday, is quoted to have said that the only mistake this NDC government has made is allowing those who caused harm to the country to walk freely.
Where from that quote?
That is Star FM. He said it's Star FM, and it's being circulated. Yes, this is somebody.
The president says that we should be patient. Let's allow due process to go on, right? Yeah. The only way we can have things done our way is to topple the constitution. No. That's what the president said. That's what he said. I'm not saying it. That's what he said.
I was actually that
if you want it quick, if you want it the way Ghanaians want to have it, the only way is to comatose the 1992 constitution, which we don't want to. So let's allow the system to go.
That is not like to say that we should topple the constitution. That will not be the antidote.
But you want
at the time
so allow the laws to work.
At the time we're campaigning passionately for oral, it was not lost on us that oral will be implemented within within constitutional frame. Okay, within the constitutional framework of this country.
The wheel of justice grinds slowly.
I am saying to you that you see, it is not only the competence to drive this. It is not only the competence to prosecute the matter. The drive. When the drive isn't there, the case will drag. What is stopping government now to ask the courts to start running shifts?
24 hour.
Yes.
Public tribunals.
Correct, because they promised us public tribunals. Come next year, there will be a lot of elections. That's my fear. And people will not be paying attention to some of these things.
The internal party running.
The internal party elections. Parliamentary primaries, presidential primaries, branch. I think we'll be doing the branch this year, and then the constituency ones. So a lot of elections coming up, and then people will be shouting. Those times, if that time you will not be there because you two will be immersed in some of the party stuff. So you will not be around to be giving us the support to be shouting.
Once I'm alive, I'll be there.
Thank you. To be talking about the aura and how aura must not fail. Look, if the one who is within the government architecture is telling us that because he said that the harm that has been caused, those who have caused harm to this country have been left to go freely, because he has a ringside view of what is happening there, and he's telling us this. Who am I to dispute it? And when I'm even having the vibe that indeed is like aura is comatose. That is why we want to always be on standby to be propping up aura.
Right.
We want to see the Attorney General displaying the zeal of like the zeal that can be akin to a religious fanatic. We want to see that because he's a consummate lawyer. That we can't take it away from him. But sometimes, you know, too much knowledge of something can make you even drag. Too much of knowledge of something can make you, because always you want to do, to the extent that you may even be engaging in petty forging, nitpicking, those things that are not even relevant because you are so pedantic in your way of doing stuff. We want to see him. He should display admirable sense of enthusiasm in implementing aura. We want to see that. He's too for those of us who are proponents of aura. We are not seeing the drive in him. We want to see the drive in him. You know, when they mention those monies, those huge sums of money, eye-watering sums of money at the Public Account Committee. Just yesterday, I was in a vehicle coming to Accra last night. So a conversation we struck up a conversation in there about the slow pace of construction in the country, the expansion of Tamamoto Way. And I said that this time around, 21st century, countries are doing these things 24 hours, 24/7. They are on site working. And then somebody said, oh, Charlie, but we don't have the money. That's why when they do it to some stage, they leave it, come back next time. And I said, but have you been listening to the Public Account Committee? Have you been watching them? If they are not careful, one day somebody will go there, somebody may just penetrate that, get into that thing and do something untoward. No, you know why? The reason when they mention those monies, as monies being looted or wasted by state institutions, get some of us angry. Yeah. That money could have done something, so the opportunity cost. That money could have provided the poor young peoples of Mafi Adakpo who are lying prostrate on their bellies, writing in classrooms. That money could have done something.
And these are serious infractions.
Good.
Right? People forging people's signature.
And it's become a ritual. It's become a ritual. Have we ever heard that Public Account Committee has successfully pursued these people who have done these infractions, and pursued them, gave them to the Attorney General for successful prosecution? They are asked to pay and then they are asked to work. Yes! You pay and then you... You know Lin Kuan Yew, who lifted the Singaporean from the doldrums of poverty into prosperity, said something. And let me just use that to wrap up. He said, democracy does not necessarily lead to development. It is discipline. So if you are practicing democracy and you think that by merely practicing democracy you are going to develop, forget it. Discipline is a critical component of democracy. Right. That probity and accountability. You know, yesterday somebody just mentioned to me that where in Ghana's law state officials expected to account to the people of Ghana. So ridiculous. I was in stitches when I heard it. Okay, right. Yes, the person asked that question. You know, so clearly that person demonstrated inexcusable ignorance of the Constitution of Ghana. Because the Constitution of Ghana, the preamble, accountability is mentioned there. Accountability is mentioned. All right. So oral must work.
You know, already some lawyers are trying to punch holes into how Ken can escape justice. And it's for me very sad. A lot of those lawyers who appear on those weekend programs, especially Newsfile, were given and using this OSP Attorney General thing as a basis for even truncating the extradition thing. Look, sometimes you ask yourself, are some of these people patriots? I remember Kofi Benson, for example, said he would not advise Ken to come home because of his past relationship with him and all that. If he was, come on, are we serious? I've heard Bobby Benson and others. Look, Charlie, Ghanaians must be very angry, whether it's with the NDC, with the MPP, or lawyers who are trying to allow people to run away with the loot. We must come out, and I think in the coming days, Arise Ghana will rise again. Right. And with that, Ghanaians. Right.
Okay, I think we need to wind down here. Let me just do a couple of messages and then we'll be done for our session this morning. This one is from Kwablavi of Pokwase Benghazi says President John Mahama has been able to cut off tax on importation of fuel, and that has halted the increase of lorry fare. Ghanaians shouldn't panic that there is going to be increased price of fuel and lorry fare. Okay, yes. Well, that this week, the next pricing window is on the 16th of, I think, this week, right? So we've been told that government will take off or suspend some of the margins and the levies on fuel. So obviously, in this window, it won't go up. We expect it to be stable, or to even come down, right?
Ideally, what you're saying is correct, but Trump is also now threatening to block.
Yes, now they've blocked. Yes, it's going to. It's a very fluid, right? So we wait to see. The government has given us the assurance that they were going to suspend.
The dynamics change every now and then.
Yeah, but promise is a promise. So we'll hold government accountable.
The government will fulfill its own.
Yes.
But Trump is not.
No, but it's subject for review. He himself mentioned that the government, that the pricing will be subject to review weekly.
The government of Ghana you can rely on.
Yes.
But the external factors like Trump, he sends his vice president, and then the course of the negotiations, the guys almost reach an agreement. Then U-turn.
So fuel stability is now inching on constant review. Also the issues in the Middle East. Well, let's see how 16th will go, right? The next window. Okay, Abbas. That's from Abbas Amogobo Offenso. And this is #1 in fighting corruption, in trying all possible ways to bring Madam SHदैन CK to serve her jail term. The NPP is a nation wrecker. They should just help government to bring Ken Ofori-Atta back home for accountability. Period. Thank you so much, Abbas, for that message. This one is from Sami Boachi Asaman Kese. The current administration led by Mahama seems to operate with blatant hypocrisy and double standards, doesn't it? It is intriguing that issues concerning the LGBT plus community, we've not discussed that, my brother. Okay, this one says, good morning, I am Eben from Kwabenya. If it's easier to extradite your own member SHदैन CK to Ghana, then I think it will be less easier to bring down Ken Ofori-Atta, who has caused more harm to the country, to answer questions. No more long talk with press conferences, period. Okay, greetings to Julius Deborah, you says. Thank you so much for the message there. This one is from Bisiu, Spintex Accra. It says, last week was a week of government working so hard to avoid increases in some sectors of the economy relatively to fuel because of the Middle East crisis. Transport with the arrival of 100 buses to cushion commuters during rush hours, and finally the trade minister's intervention in reversing the price of sachet water, and we need to applaud the government. Papa Bisiu Spentex sent that in. Okay, so let me do Facebook. All right, Seidu Isaka, I acknowledge you. You are watching us from Tokyo. All right, it says, good morning, Pan-African Television. You are watching us from Tokyo. Thank you so much.
PENDREAM TV. Now, so far, so good. Say, open online portal, Ghana. Nipa share, Nipa follow, Nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.